All right, let's dive in. Today, we're all about Maplewood State Park.
Maplewood in Minnesota.
Yeah, and we're not just, hitting the basic facts. We want to know what it feels like to be there.
Get a sense of the place.
Exactly. What's the vibe? What are those little things that make it special? What's going to make someone want to go visit?
And we've got a good spread of sources. Got the official park stuff, some blogs, people's, trip stories, even some history and ecology thrown in.
Nice. So first impressions, right? Out of the gate, it seems like the fall colors are a big deal at Maplewood.
Yeah, the videos, photos, everyone's talking about those reds and oranges.
Yeah.
Reflected in the lakes. It's like a postcard.
Oh, I bet. And it's interesting, so many sources mention how peaceful and quiet it is there.
Like a real escape. One YouTuber even said their kayak, perfectly matched the fall leaves. Talk about blending in, huh?
That's fantastic. And speaking of getting into the scenery, it sounds like Maplewood's full of surprises, like the way the land changes.
Totally. Prairies turn into forests, then boom, you've got these rolling hills and lakes. And people always say they're surprised by how big it is.
Like a hidden gem kind of thing.
Exactly. Oh, and get this, it's actually in the Leaf Mountains.
Leaf Mountains. Okay, that does not make me think of rugged peaks. More like gentle slopes and lots of trees.
And that seems to be the case. Technically mountains, but it's more about rolling hills, not huge climbs. And those hills are packed with wildlife. That's another thing people rave about.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, deer sightings all over the place, especially at dawn and dusk. Beavers, raccoons, squirrels, chipmunks, the whole crew. And over 150 bird species. I'd be bird watching nonstop.
What's cool is because it's that edge where prairie meets forest, you get this amazing mix of animals, both habitats kind of merge there.
Oh, that makes sense. You get the best of both worlds.
Speaking of encounters, one YouTuber told this funny story about running into a snake on a hike. It's like a little reminder, we're not alone out there.
You're sharing the space. It's their home. Okay, but let's talk about what people actually do at Maplewood. Kayaking on Beers Lake seems super popular.
Especially in the fall. Picture paddling through these narrow channels with all those colorful leaves around you.
Sounds magical. And for people who'd rather stay on dry land.
Oh, there's plenty. A 5-mile scenic drive, Holloway Hill for amazing views, and tons of trails, hiking, horseback riding. Plus, South Lake Leda has this sandy beach, perfect for swimming.
Kayaking, hiking, swimming. Something for everyone.
Yeah.
And don't forget, in the winter, there's cross-country skiing, snowmobiling, snowshoeing.
Yeah, Maplewood's a year-round kind of place. Each season brings something different.
Like multiple parks all rolled into one. All right, so we've got the sights, the sounds, the activities. But what about the backstory? The history of Maplewood.
Get ready for this. There's evidence of people living in that area for 6,000 years.
Whoa! 6,000 years. That puts things in perspective. People were there long before any of us were even thought of.
Yeah, and the park actually has a pre-contact habitation site. It's preserved right there.
Wow. So how did it become the park we know today? I heard something about the land being better for recreation than farming.
That's right. They figured out this area was more valuable for, its beauty, the activities you could do there, not so much for growing crops.
So from ancient settlements to a haven for outdoor enthusiasts, Maplewoods had quite the journey. And speaking of havens, we can't forget about those lakes.
Oh, right. Maplewood has 8 major lakes and tons of smaller ponds. Swimming, fishing, boating, they're a huge part of the experience.
And each lake seems to have its own personality, right?
Yeah.
South Lake Leda with the sandy beach and picnic areas sounds perfect for families.
Yep. And then you've got Bass Lake, stocked full of rainbow trout. That's for the anglers.
And Beers Lake seems to be the spot for muskie fishing. Even has a fishing pier.
Can't forget Grass Lake, a real hot spot for panfish.
So many choices. But even if you're not into fishing or swimming, just being near the water, surrounded by nature, must be so relaxing.
Totally. Imagine yourself, paddling across the lake at sunset or casting your line, maybe just listening to the loon's call. It's connecting with nature on a different level.
Okay, so we've established Maplewood's got this amazing blend of beauty, activities, and history. But what does it all mean for, the person listening to this?
That's the big question, isn't it? We can throw out facts all day, but what's the takeaway, the so what?
Right. What's the connection for our listener? Why should they care?
I think Maplewood's offering something special. It's an invitation to step away from everything, get lost in nature, learn something new, make some memories.
But it's more than just a pretty place to visit, right?
Way more. It's a reminder about the power of place, the land we're on, the air, the water. It's all connected to something bigger than us. And exploring a place like Maplewood can reconnect us to that, to nature, and in a way, to ourselves.
I love that. It's not just checking a park off your list. It's enriching your life, understanding the world better, maybe even feeling inspired to protect these places.
Exactly. That's the real power of, a deep dive like this.
Well said. And speaking of diving deeper, we've only scratched the surface. In part 2 of our Maplewood adventure, we're going to get into something truly fascinating: the park's ecology.
We'll be talking about all the amazing plants and animals, the forces that shape the landscape, and how you can experience all that ecological wonder firsthand.
Stay tuned. Part 2 is just a click away. Welcome back to our Maplewood deep dive. Last time, we talked about how beautiful it is, all the things you can do there, even a little bit of history. But now we're going to get into the sciencey stuff.
The ecology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is where things get really interesting, especially with Maplewood's location. You know how we talked about it being a park of contrasts?
Yeah, like prairies and forests all mixed together.
Right. And ecologically speaking, it's super unique. It's right where 2 major biomes meet: the prairie grasslands and the hardwood forests.
Like a border zone. And it's not just that they're next to each other. It's more like they blend together. It's called an ecotone.
An ecotone. Okay, so what's so special about that?
Ecotones are known for having tons of different species, like way more than either habitat would have on its own, because you get species from both sides hanging out there.
Oh, that makes sense. More variety, more life.
Yeah.
So we've got this mix of prairie and forest. What kind of plants and animals are we talking about?
So picture the prairie. Wide open spaces, wildflowers everywhere, grasses waving in the wind. You'll find things like big bluestem, milkweed, coneflowers. Those are classic prairie plants. They love the sun. And get this, they're adapted to fire.
Wait, fire? As in like wildfires?
Exactly. Fires are actually really important for prairies. They help clear out old plants, stop trees from taking over. It's kind of like a reset button for the ecosystem.
Wow, I never thought of it like that. So fire is actually a good thing in this case.
It's natural. It's part of the cycle. Now, if we move into the forest, it's a totally different scene. Maplewood's got these huge hardwood trees: maples, basswood, oak, elm.
Those are the ones that give those incredible fall colors, right?
Yep. And they provide food and shelter for a whole different group of animals: deer, squirrels, woodpeckers, owls, all kinds of things.
You know, this reminds me of that snake story from before. What other reptiles and amphibians might you find at Maplewood?
Oh, definitely snakes. Garter snakes are pretty common, maybe even a bull snake or a hognose if you're lucky.
Not sure how lucky I'd feel about that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's cool, they're part of the ecosystem.
And don't forget amphibians. In the spring, you'll hear tons of frogs and toads, especially around the lakes and wetlands.
Speaking of the lakes, what about the stuff living under the water? What kind of aquatic life does Maplewood have?
The lakes and ponds are teeming with life. There's the game fish like walleye, bass, northern pike, and then all those smaller fish that people love to catch, the panfish. But it's not just fish. You've got all these tiny creatures too: insects, crustaceans, mollusks. They're the base of the food web,
It's easy to forget about those little guys, but they're super important.
Totally. But even with all this amazing biodiversity, Maplewood faces some challenges. Invasive species are a problem. They can take over and push out the native plants.
Yeah, I've heard about that being an issue in a lot of parks.
And climate change is another big one. Changes in temperature and rainfall can really mess with the plants and animals.
So it sounds like Maplewood's ecology is a little bit fragile.
Yeah.
Like it needs our help to stay healthy.
In a way, yeah. But thankfully, there are people working hard to protect it. Park managers are out there controlling invasive species, restoring habitats, teaching people about conservation.
It sounds like a tough job.
It is, but it's worth it. And it's not just up to them. Everyone who visits can do their part.
So what can we do? How can we be responsible visitors while still enjoying the park?
Little things make a difference. Stay on the trails, don't trample the plants, pack out all your trash, even stuff that seems like it'll decompose. And be careful with fire, especially when it's dry.
Oh yeah, I used to think it was okay to toss a banana peel or something. But that actually takes a while to break down, right?
It all comes down to respect. Respect for the land, respect for the wildlife, respect for the people who'll come after us.
That's a good way to put it. We can be inspired by Maplewood's beauty, but we got to take care of it too. But it's not all about being cautious.
Yeah.
Like there's still a sense of fun and wonder to be had.
Of course. Engage those senses. Really look at those wildflowers, listen to the birds, smell the fresh air. Let Maplewood recharge you.
It's a two-way street. We get to experience nature, and in return, we take care of it.
I like that. So we've talked about the plants, the animals, the challenges. Anything else we should consider about Maplewood's ecology?
Well, there's one more piece to the puzzle. Remember those ancient settlements we talked about? Those people lived in harmony with this landscape for thousands of years. They depended on it, but they also shaped it. That's right, they weren't just watching nature, they were part of it. Which brings us to the next part of our deep dive. In part 3, we'll explore how human history and ecology are intertwined at Maplewood. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've gone through all the amazing things about Maplewood, the scenery, the wildlife. Now we're going to dig into something really cool.
The human element.
Yeah.
How people and nature have, interacted at Maplewood over time.
It's easy to think of those as separate things, but at Maplewood, they're totally intertwined.
Totally. Think about it. You've got these early inhabitants depending on Maplewood for, everything. Food, shelter, medicine. So they're hunting, gathering, even farming, shaping the land to survive.
It's like this back and forth. Humans adapt to nature. Nature adapts to humans. What are some specific examples of that at Maplewood?
Oh, there's a great one. Fire. The Native American tribes who lived there, they used controlled burns to manage the prairie.
Really? Like intentionally setting fires?
Yeah, but it was for a good reason. They knew that fire was essential to keep the prairie healthy.
So they were kind of like the first ecologists.
Exactly. They figured out that fire helped keep the ecosystem diverse, stop the trees from taking over, and you can still see the effects of that today. The open prairies are a direct result of those controlled burns.
That's amazing. It makes you wonder what other signs of, past human activity are still hidden at Maplewood.
Oh, tons, I'm sure. There have been archaeological digs that have uncovered all sorts of stuff, like old settlements, tools, pottery. It gives us a glimpse into how people lived there, how they connected to the land.
It's like we're looking at just one tiny piece of a much bigger story. But human history isn't always about harmony, right?
Right. When European settlers came, things changed a lot. They cleared forests for farming, built towns, and that had a big impact on the environment.
And that eventually led to the creation of Maplewood State Park, right? To protect what was left.
Exactly. Making it a park in 1963 was like saying, hey, this place is special, we need to preserve it. Not just for resources, but for its beauty, its history, and for people to enjoy.
So it's like coming full circle. From those first inhabitants who lived in balance with nature to today, where we're trying to get back to that.
Maplewood really shows that connection between humans and the environment. It reminds us that we're part of nature, not separate from it, and everything we do has an effect.
That's a powerful message. So as visitors today, how can we, honor that legacy, make sure we're on the right side of history?
It starts with knowledge. Learn about the history of the land, the people who were there before. Understand the forces that shaped it. When you know the story behind a place, you appreciate it more and you treat it differently.
So it's more than just going for a hike and enjoying the view.
Way more. It's about being respectful, understanding that we're part of something bigger.
And maybe even feeling a connection to the people who came before us.
Exactly. Next time you're at Maplewood, standing by a lake or walking through the forest, think about all the generations who've been there before you, how they saw that same landscape, how they lived with it. There's a lot we can learn from them.
It really makes you think. Well, that brings our Maplewood deep dive to a close. We've explored so much, from the scenery to the ecology to the human history.
It's been a journey.
And hopefully we've inspired you to experience Maplewood yourself. Get out there, walk those trails, breathe that fresh air, and connect with nature and history in a whole new way.
And until next time, keep exploring.
Thanks for joining us.